months of age, then if there's not enough capacity there, that could be a problem. So I think there's ongoing research in women about how strenuously you should exercise when you're pregnant, just because of those issues related to nutrient supply to the fetus. So I don't think we know anything about that in horses, but it would be good to know.
But beyond that, I've got a good friend named Liam O'Rourke, and Liam manages Dalham Hall, Darley in England, and he's got placenta weights for the last umpteen years. And I'd nearly bet you dollars to donuts that placental weights are less in maiden mares than they are multiparous mares. But I'll check that with Liam. That's a fact.
Yeah, that's a fact.
Bobby, and he manages Stonerside, you know Bobby. So it is. So what does that say to you? It says to you that uterine space may be and probably is limiting. Is probably limiting. Any others? Yeah, in the back.
I'll make one comment. Just because an old mare has a raw top line doesn't mean she's not weak.
The comment Steve made was, just because an old mare has a raw top line doesn't mean that she is not carrying some condition and will have a normal foal. You know, and just because I have a raw bottom line doesn't mean that I'm fat. All right? No, I agree with you completely, because there is a change in where they deposit fat and the impact of muscle. You know, longissimus dorsi and the gluteal muscles on a horse, when they're full, then they have more top to them. All right? But on the other hand, most thin horses I have seen are pot-bellied. All right, they're heavy middle because they don't have any top. In the visual appraisal, you don't have that fat cover down the top, so the heavy middle makes them appear to be fat. So evaluation of these horses routinely and making or not a management decision. Or if you make no decision, it's a management decision. Making a decision on how you need to change them is important. But just remember that from November until foaling, these maiden mares probably, is maidens, true maidens, not barren maidens, probably are going to need more to eat and more TLC than multiparous mares. Others? We could talk for hours. I wish we could, but I'm getting the chain pulled in the background. I'll stay around after.
Thank you to Doctors Durham, Lawrence, and Jackson for seating that panel. If we could, we'll move right on into the next panel, so if I could get the participants up, we'll get you seated. Okay, we'll move on into our yearling breaking panel. Let me give a quick introduction. This panel is going to consist of Matt Hogan from Blackwood Stables, Terry Arnold from Dixiana, Michael Hardy from Margaux, and Richard Budge from WinStar. Each will do a quick introduction of themselves, give a little background on each operation. They all are going to be varied on the topic that they're going to cover today, and then how their operations service the marketplace. So to move along, Michael, we're going to start off with you.
Good afternoon, folks. Thanks for being here, and lean into this a little more. So I'm Michael Hardy. I'm the manager of Margaux Farm. We're just outside Midway, just 15 minutes from here, as most of you know. So Margaux is it's a 640-acre farm, and basically we're split into two divisions. We got a broodmare division, but our primary focus over the last three years, maybe a little longer, has been in the break-in and training sphere. So on that front, we have developed 3 different training tracks on the farm. We've got a 1.5 mile turf course with the ability to breeze half a mile with a 1 furlong uphill finish. And then we have 2 separate synthetic tracks. One is a 5 furlong undulating gallop. I'll talk about it a little later when we go into the actual discussion on breaking and training, but it's a great track for building balance into young horses. And then we have another synthetic, a mile and the 16th straightaway synthetic, which is where we start to put some speed into the young horses. And Matt will go ahead and talk about how important that is for your 2-year-olds to actually build some speed and lay down some bone with our 2-year-olds. So I'll leave it at that for now, and I'll let Matt talk a little bit about Blackwood, and we'll come back then and talk about the breaking process.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Matt Hogan. I own and operate Blackwood Stables in Versailles, Kentucky. We are a 400-acre facility it's just primarily breaking, training, rehabilitation of racing age horses, starting from yearlings up through horses that are currently in their racing career at every level. We have a 6-furlong dirt racetrack, the same surface that is here at Keeneland. It is an accredited track, so we publish our own works. We have a starting gate, which Speck and his crew here from Keeneland come out, and we get gate cards, and we'll get the horses as close to the races as possible. We also have, another part of that farm is up the road that we have all the layups on. It's, it's a quieter environment. There's not as much training going on. It's separate from the day-to-day operations, as well as, multiple turnout paddocks and fields over there on that property just for simply giving them some time off. There's really not much more to say about that other than, the racetrack, the grass gallops, and, I think we've got a pretty fantastic team of people put together and great riders that kind of helps us really push on forward in this game, and, fortunate to have a lot of good clients that support us and get the horses out there and win races.
Good afternoon. Terry Arnold from Dixiana Farm. I have a private operation. The one owner owns all the horses, so some of my decisions can become a little more easy or a little more, I know the goal that we're trying to get to. So when I'm bringing along a horse, I don't have to, I can take each horse individually into what the one goal is that we're trying to accomplish. We've got a 1-mile dirt course and a 5/8 mile grass course, and we have the ability to do a lot of trail riding. It's a 1,100-acre farm with 75 brood mares, so there's a lot of space on it, and so that's where we try to use those facilities to our best account.
My name's Richard Budge. I oversee the training and rehab at WinStar. We've got a 7/8 poly track along with an uphill poly track, one of the few in the country. An indoor arena, which is a dirt surface, which is real useful this time of year. And we've got a nice turf gallop. Basically take care of the 2-year-olds and get them to the races for WinStar, and also do quite a lot of rehab, getting horses back in from the track. We've got a lot of tools in the rehab barn, anything from, got the hyperbaric chamber, the aquatrad, one of the saltwater equine spas, which is real useful. Vibration plates, a lot of paddock turnout. And we get quite a lot of turnover in the rehab division. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay, so I'll lead us off with the breaking and initial early stage breaking. So, as most of you here are consigners or breeders or racehorse owners of some sort, and the majority of the horses that come into Margaux are from the September sale. I'm sure it's probably the same for Matt and Richard and Terry as well. They come in to us from the yearling sales, and the first thing I have to say, because I feel like I've got the right audience in front of me, is commend the job that you guys do with these horses when they come to us. It just makes our jobs so much easier when they come from the September sale and they have already got a great handling foundation under them. We're not worried about going in grooming hind legs and having to get grooms kicked through the wall. So it just makes our lives so much easier for the horses that come in from the September sale because of the great job that you guys do with your consignments and sales prep. So the first part of the breaking process at Margaux, we kind of separate it down into a mental aspect of breaking, and then we start, and I'll let Matt go on because I could talk for days and wouldn't let anybody else get a chance, but I'm going to let Matt talk a little bit more about the actual fitting of the race horses. But the first aspect of it really is mental. These are young horses, they're growing, they're going through a lot of change, and right up until the sales prep is really the beginning of it, but right up until they get through the sale, they've never really had to go through the kind of stresses, either mentally or physically, on their body before. So for us, it's really a key of managing that mental transition and managing that mental stress for the horse as easy as possible. So the first thing we will do, we'll give the horses normally a few days, not too long off after the sale, just to let them get back into their, into an environment that they're comfortable with again, get them back turned out into their fields and paddocks, and then we'll bring them in and start to introduce them to the different bits of tack. So obviously, most of these horses haven't come from the sale, have already been introduced to, things like side reins. They've already normally have had a bit in their mouth. So we're not, we don't need to spend too long with the horses that come from, from a September sale or any of the other yearling sales here with that area, because they're already very well trained in that aspect. But with the saddle, and with cinching up girths and that's where we'll spend a lot of time. And we start that in the stable, in an environment where the horse is comfortable. At Margaux, we always do it with 2 people in the stall. So there'll be a groom at the horse's head. It's 2 reasons. One is to keep the horse quite calm, keep them relaxed. And the other reason, just to safety. You're introducing new stimuluses to the horses, and as we all know, horses are flight animals, so they want to get away from things that are going to scare them. So it's a safety thing as well. But you want somebody there on their head, and then the rider, and we use our riders to do all our breaking. So the rider will come in then and start to introduce the saddle. They'll start to let the horse sniff on the saddle and start to put the weight onto their back and kind of touch them around in their flanks and touch them around their belly and get them used to being introduced to different stimuli. And on the first day, that could be all we do. We don't want to ever push a horse past its mental breaking point. That's not the name of the game. It's not how we want to go about getting our horses started and ready for the track. So for us then, it's a very, very slow, not slow, maybe it's the wrong word, but it's a process that you really have to work with each individual horse. And Terry mentioned it earlier, all of these horses are individuals. They've all got, different bodies, different shapes. Some are very early precocious, some are just know exactly that you could put a child up on their back after the first day, and others, it'll take them 3 weeks before they're actually comfortable letting you cinch up a girth on them. So you really have to work with each individual horse and not try to put them onto your timeline. Horses have their own timeline, and there's nothing we can do about that. We can't rush one. You're never gonna save time by rushing and skipping steps in the process. So we take it quite slowly, getting the rider introduced onto their back, getting them used to that weight and that stimulus. And then what we'll do, once we get the rider up in the stall, is we'll bring the horses out, again with the groom on the head and the rider on the back, and start walking them up and down the shed row. And what we're really doing here is you've got to get the horse to accept the commands from the rider on the horse's back. All through their lives, these horses have been handled with a groom at their head. So they're used to having a stimulus coming from a lead rope or coming from a chain around their nose. So you've got to get them used to that stimulus from the bit, as that is a command that they now need to respect, and they need to understand what it means. So we kind of transition that across slowly. So we will start with the groom with a lead rope on the head and the rider. And as the groom asks the horse to go to the left or go to the right or walk forward or stop, the rider will ask for the same commands in his hands and with his legs. And that's very important because, as I was saying before, this is all a mental process for these horses. They're young, they're babies. I mean, we call them babies all the time, and it literally rings true. They are babies. So once they start to appreciate and pick up those commands, then the groom will, start to slowly step back. They'll maybe stand there, but they won't walk up with the horse, and they'll let the horse kind of do it a little bit more by themselves, and let the rider and the horse get that command set up together between them. One of the things, and I'm sure all of the guys here do the same, but we try to keep the same rider with the same horse every day right through, from the day they start them, unless there's a problem or we want to change something, or it's just not working out with a particular rider. We try to match up the rider to the horse on day one and keep that relationship right through. And it's for two reasons. One is for the horse's benefit, but also there's nobody can tell you what's going on with the horse better than the rider. The horses are not going to tell us when they're feeling a little bit different from the day before. That rider, if he's been riding that horse for 4 months, he can say, he didn't always just do that, and it gives you a little bit of an instinct, a little bit of, okay, we need to dig a little deeper here. So once we get the horse and rider in the shed row, walking up and down, calm, quiet, everything very, very relaxed, very easy, just very quietly done in the shed. Then we'll go into the round pen. And, obviously you can't have a horse, you can do too much with them as well. We do have to keep progressing them on, keep pushing them forward. So we take them into the round pen next. We'll go in groups of 4 or 5, depending on the size of the round pen. And we'll start to jog them, get them their figure eights, get them, going around left circles, going around in right circles. We'll walk them. We'll kind of do little serpentines through the center of the round pens. And really, again, what you're training and what you're trying to command to the horse at that stage is understanding what the rider is asking them for. Understanding that when the rider is kind of kicking them forward a little bit, they're supposed to jog, and when they're holding them to pulling on a left rein and pulling on a right rein, what the horse is expected to do, and when they're expected to stop and go through all the different commands. So once the horses are doing that really easy, quietly, calmly in the round pen, then we'll transition to the arena. And our arena on the farm is it's open, it's wide. There's no high walls on it, so it can really it's quite open and exposed versus the round pen, which has a high wall. And the horse really has to, they've no other stimulus, so they're really only focusing on the rider. When they go to the arena, there's other horses in the distance, there's cars going past, there's different stimulus going around. So that's when you can really see these horses starting to understand that it's the guy on my back that's now telling me what to do, and you can kind of see the smart ones stand out, the classy horses stand out. You get a few pigs every year, and they just won't work for anybody doing anything, and they just they never really turn out to be good racehorses. But you can always tell a classy horse is one that just kind of takes it all in their stride, effortlessly, everything goes easy. And whenever they go into the arena, then again, it's a lot of jogging, a lot of I always say it's a lot of groundwork, but people have often come back to me and said, well, isn't everything you do with them groundwork? I said, well, technically it is, but or flat work, I should say. But so we'll try and teach the horses. Then we'll put down poles and try and teach them to extend, teach them how to use their bodies, how to really physically stretch and extend. And we like to work them in a kind of a long and low type frame, so that they're not getting up into themselves and getting real short strided and getting kind of nervous and hunched up in their back. So there's things like that we can do in the arena where there's more space. And then we'll do again figure eights, getting them into big serpentines, getting them, teaching them that left right rein, the commands, the different basically the different aspects of balance and what they're going to need to do when they go to the racetrack. I'm going to leave it there for now, just because Matt is going to take them on when they go to the racetrack. At Margaux, at our farm, the first track that we take them to is it's a very open, you know, there's no rails on the track. It's really just a real nice little, you know, gallop. So we'll take them out there, and because it's so open, we spend a lot of time with them in the arena, making sure that those horses understand every command that rider is asking for, and when he says stop, they stop, and there's no, you know, messing around from the horses. And you know, like I was saying before, you know, you can't put your time schedule onto you know, a horse. They don't care about what you want to do at 4 o'clock. You know, so you got to kind of work with them. But I'll let Matt take over and talk. I think you're going to talk a little bit about the early, getting them on the track early and speed.
So again, I think like one thing that all of us up here would wholeheartedly agree with is that it's the individuality of the program for each horse. I mean, their physical makeups and their personalities are just as diverse as all of us in this room. I mean, they all have their quirks, their likes, their dislikes. So once you've been able to establish that relationship like he's talking about with the animal, with the correct rider, and everything's kind of in good harmony, and they've been all over the farm with multiple gallops and up and down the grass and through the fields, and they're all in company now and they're doing their thing. Then we kind of enter, you know, the first day on the racetrack, which at our place, we always make sure the babies go the last. You know, all the older horses are training. There's no other traffic on there. And initially, you know, just in the sets from the different sides of the farm, they go alone. So there'll be 4 and 5 horses on the track the first time by themselves, no other sets out there. And we just kind of switch back and forth to make it as simple and quiet as possible, because there's something different about when they have that white rail on either side of them, that it's just, eyes are this big. I kind of call this the cat herding phase, because you're hushing everybody one direction, but they're bouncing this way. They do 10 strides and take a buck and a fart, and then they get back in together again and they go on. And you know, it's entertaining as can be. But once we've got them in company, head down, and you know, again, it's a big picture thing. You know, you have to stand back and look at the animal in its development and its attitude in which it's training. You know, to be on the racetrack galloping. I mean, there's 100 different ways to get a horse fit. Now, do I think a racetrack's the best way? Well, we're in America, so it is the only way that we're going to do it. That's what they're going to be racing on. But, you know, switching back and forth between, you know, trying them on the grass, you know, galloping out there one day, then Tuesday, Thursday, you gallop on the track, and then, you know, Wednesday, Friday, you gallop the wrong way on the racetrack. You know, keep as much variety in it for these horses at a young age as possible. That just it keeps their minds tuned in, and, you know, you move forward a lot better, and everybody's happy. And again, with the timeline, like Michael's talking about, like I wish every owner I worked for would just tear up their calendar and throw it out, because, you know, they dictate the pace in which we move forward. You know, we're watching how they're training. Are they moving forward? Are they reaching out? Are they happy in company? Are they holding their weight? Are they gaining weight? Are they growing? And, you know, that's when I think a real simple analogy I always like to use is it's as if you're in your car and you have a dashboard in front of you. All the information is right there. It tells you how many miles you're going, it tells what speed that vehicle can do, and the rev limiter of how much more speed it can take before it goes to the next gear. And the horses are very much a similar way. You know, the big backward 2-year-old, well, he's like a dump truck. He's only going to be able to go 50 miles an hour, and he's not going to be able to do it every day. The race car types, they give much higher speed. They're going to be able to get through everything a little bit easier, but it's when they're ready for that. And that's what you have to watch for, is when you're comfortable galloping enough and the horse is showing you that everything that it has learned, it is accepted, is when you start feeding speed in there. You know, and then it's dictating, do I let this horse go in company, or is it going to be too competitive? That's going to be too much for those 2 horses. Or do we do, like what I do a lot of is a lot of tactical stuff. I'll have, you know, 2 horses in front of each other and 1 right behind. They've all got to learn to take dirt in their face at some point. It's not every race is going to be spring out of the gate and zip around there and run home first. There's going to be traffic. There's going to be bobbing and weaving. And that's a big thing that we're very fortunate that all of us can do, is teach these babies that by the time they've gotten to their first start, they've had the experience of bumping off of other horses. And, you know, it always drives me crazy. The owner's like, well, we've been galloping now for 2 months. You know, we should be breezing now. It's like, well, the horse isn't ready yet. You know, physically he's got to mature. Or this little filly is bouncing off the walls. We're going to carry on. And it's knowing when to push that button, or when to push the pedal down a little bit harder and touch that red line and see if you can progress them. Because it's those early stages from now through the spring and the summer when it's crucial to develop this bone, to make these horses tough, because no matter what we do, when they're done with us, they go to the trainer. And depending on which trainer you go to, and as long as the relationship you have with that trainer is good, when you tell him he's ready for this, he's good to go. Now, other people might not listen to you and they drive on, and that's where you've got to have that horse prepared and tough enough for every rigor that they're going to, come across in their life. And the big thing is, like Michael said, your riders are going to tell you more than anything. I mean, you can watch every day galloping, and before we start breezing, you make sure they know their lead changes coming down the lane. They've switched everything around, and then, again, galloping the wrong way around the racetrack is another a balance of strength. But your riders and having a good team of guys that are going to be able to give you feedback. Well, this filly gets a little timid on the rail when somebody swings on her outside. Okay, well, then we know we're going to teach her to go on the outside. And then maybe her first breeze will be on the outside. She won't feel so crowded and crushed in, because with all these horses, you get one chance to make an impression initially. And the fillies, they never forget if one thing goes wrong. I mean, the colts, you can kind of, on you go, boys, toughen up and deal with it. But you have to, child's gloves. This is their first for a lot of things. This is a whole new job for them. And that's kind of the way I view it, is it's the introduction to the new job. And, as you start breezing, and you don't really have that, I don't watch a calendar. I don't do this cookie cutter thing where they've got to go this many steps and this many that. It's like, if you watch the horse, like I said, watch the dashboard. It's all right there in front of you. I mean, if you can see it, and horsemen of all of you guys and all of us, it's like you look at these animals every day. They're telling you something, even though they're not opening their mouth and saying it. That's the number one key. And, you see their confidence blossom, and you see them blossom. And as they carry up through that breezing, you watch the horse that you thought was like you said, the kind of the pig from, that doesn't want to do anything. Well, all of a sudden that confidence is built up in that horse, and then you're like, one little gallop around there and run down the lane, and you're like, uh-oh, I was wrong, and they make you look like an idiot every day of the week, because they have a mind of their own. They can completely turn their tune around in 1 week's time, and that's what's so amazing and so much fun about this, is you watch these younger horses that, you guys have pulled out of their mother and spent all day trying to keep them alive and bubble wrap to get to the sale, and then we get them and chuck them out in groups of dozens and 15s and toughen them up and get them out there. But you watch these guys blossom, and you see that confidence come in them, and as long as you chart their progress to which they dictate, not what the calendar says. I mean, that horse has its level of ability and its amount of speed, and no matter what we do, we can't make it any faster. That's just not possible. It's knowing when to take that step forward, to feed the speed into it, to test it on as they grow and develop. Because doing something too early just because so-and-so asked you to kind of step it up, that could cost you a year. And there's bills, and the horse is not the racetrack for another year. So that's the point of, let them tell you, let them dictate what's next. And as long as we've done our job to properly teach them this stuff and give them the confidence, and in company, by the time they get to their first start, they can walk out of the gate. And as long as they've been taught well, they can bob and weave through traffic and swing out wide and home, win, as long as they've been taught properly. And I could go on about this stuff all day, but I'm going to hand it off to Terry for the next step.
All right. Well, I kind of look at it like, your horse is up to breezing, and you're starting to think about when you're going to send it to the trainer, to the racetrack. And I kind of look at it like we're bridging a gap from a horse going from a farm livestock to a racetrack athlete. And we try to do as many things as we can to, at the farm, that those horses are going to have happen to them at the racetrack. So it's a seamless move over from farm stock to athlete. And they're going to have a lot of changes happen to them once they hit the racetrack. It's like I try to use turnout a lot at the farm. When they get to the racetrack, they're going to be in the barn probably 22.5 to 23 hours a day. So especially with the 2-year-olds, I start them training, and I'm still turning them out at night. They're getting treated at night like they have been pretty much their whole lives. But then we're bringing them up in the day and treating them like racehorses during the day. And I think bringing them along and letting them start to get fit while they're still partially being treated like farm horses, is a great transition for them. It's a great way to bring them along to prepare them for what's going to happen to them when they get to the track. When you're starting to think about when to send the horse actually to the track, I think there's a couple of things that you really have to consider. And number one is, as Matt said, I think it's the relationship you have with the trainer, and the relationship and the expectation that the owner has. You know, some guys, some trainers, they don't have the stall space or the to have a horse for an extremely long time before it's ready to run. So those, you want to carry them at the farm a little bit further and send them to them right as you think they're ready to get into serious training. Other guys want to develop them and bring them along the way they see fit. They watch a horse train for a little while, and then they can develop a plan and follow it through right on up to the first race. And then some owners would rather you take them along a little further so that they're not at the track an extremely long time before they're ready to run that first time. Some guys want the trainers to bring them along the way they see fit. So I think you just have to judge that. Number one, it's very simple for me because I have one owner. I know what he wants, so I can do that much easier. And the bottom line, when you start breezing them, you know, I start letting them two minute lick once a week, and then we start twice a week, and then we start introducing breezing. So I think that's probably the easiest part is they'll go as fast as you want them to go. We try to let them use as much speed as they want to have. I don't ever ask them to go fast. You know, we can't make them go as fast as they're genetically got the makeup to go. So I just try to stay out of their way and let them carry that part on. The fast part, they're going to do it if they want. We can't make them go faster. So, and the bottom line is most of this stuff when it comes to training horses is mental. I do as many things as I can at the farm for them to not associate going to the racetrack and just running off. You know, I want them to train with focus and train like they, they have, class, but you don't want them to get it in their head that just because they're going to the racetrack, it means go fast. We, like they mentioned, one day a week I'll let them gallop the wrong way. Some days I'll let them go out there with a pony and just kind of hack around. Some days we'll go to the field, some days we go to the track. And then on breeze days, I try to put them in sets of 2 or 3. We're starting to kind of simulate what a race would be. I like for them to breeze in company because I think it builds a lot of confidence. So on breeze days, it's a little more on the muscle and professional. On gallop days, you want them to be a little more relaxed and take it easy and learn that, training is fun, but it's my job as well. I love to see a horse kind of jump around and act a little